Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. It is my honor to have Andrea here and my pleasure to welcome her. As my custom is to welcome her and first to honor her because I know she's coming with a couple of things I know that is very expensive, her time. Time, what a precious commodity that is, because 24 hours has been offered to all of us. And what we do with that 24 hours will expose you. So you have to learn to value time, learn to respect time, because if you respect time, you will respect yourself, you respect how you spend that time. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator, and it created Andrea. But that journey gave her a couple of things as gifts, and we want access to those things. What are those? Wisdom, knowledge, insights, all those things that it deposited in her. We want access. Why? Because it's going to help you and I to become better human spirits while we're here on this planet. And so we want to do this. And so she's coming here to offer both to us. And so we want to honor her and thank her. Andrew, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much, Ken, for having me. Thank you very much. I'm very honored and pleased to share this time with you.
It is an honor to be here. This is the first question that I usually throw at the person when they show up, and I didn't want to tell you anything about it because I can't wait, because I love how you introduce yourself to come on here. So I just love it. My question to you is, how do you serve mankind?
I am serving mankind by allowing, or rather facilitating, the people to understand how their conscious and subconscious mind works. For those who are most skeptical, I do it from a more science-backed aspect through hypnotherapy. And for those who are most into the spiritual part, I also do it through spirituality. Because for me, spirituality is not just what some people consider woo-woo. For me, spirituality is what we do every day, how we move about our lives and the things that we do to ourselves and to others. For me, spirit is our essence, everything that we do, everything that we are. So when somebody comes to me asking for assistance or in need of assistance, I like to combine these two worlds of something that is greater than us, that is this universal energy that is being channeled and funneled through us through this vehicle called body, and the wisdom of our mind and our subconscious mind as something akin to a divine mind that lives inside of us, as we are all fractals. We are all pieces of this divinity that are moving around on earth. And so this is how I would like to assist, and how I'm assisting people to overcome from a very, very deep point of our wisdom, your wisdom, everybody's wisdom, inner wisdom, to overcome any kind of traumatic experience or narrative or belief that was programmed into the subconscious as an absolute, that maybe drive us to feel anxiety, stress, burnout, or beliefs that we are not enough, or beliefs that we need to have and to do things in order to be worthy. So I would like to think that I'm somewhat a connector, a disconnector, a connector. So I'm disconnecting you from the 3D matrix and connecting you to a higher understanding and wisdom about yourself. And
that's the journey, to disconnect us from the limited mind to connect us to the unlimited mind.
Yes.
That is the piece. And it's usually we approach the two because we come with what we're trained with, and the conscious approach to make that, to cross that bridge But I tell the people the only way you can cross that bridge is by faith. But that's
Yes.
okay. We'll continue. We'll talk about that as we go through. And so, one of the, as I mentioned to you on the onset before the show, that we have these locations that we visit as we are processing and walking through this linear life as they deem that we should be walking. And one of the very first space that we visit is that a location that's called the home, the family. And at this place is where we began to learn several things. We learned communication skills, we are learning relationship skills, we're learning all these different things there, behavioral skills. And most of those happen through trauma. The introduction of trauma will happen here as well. What was your family unit like?
Well, I grew up in Chile in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
So that was during the dictatorship, which made everything very different to what you would call a normal life or a normal growing up. The first two words I learned to say were fly and bomb. I know. And my father was a person that needed to work long hours. And my mom was a person that basically was what you would call a textbook narcissist. And for a young girl growing up with all the circumstances, it wasn't easy, but at the same time, the resilience of a child is something that is otherworldly, because kids are still very much connected to a source of strength and to a source of wisdom that I believe it has very much to do with the brain waves that our brains are working from the time before we're born until we're around 7 to 12 years old. So that obviously created a lot of trauma. And our subconscious mind is so wise that I didn't have access to all those memories, absolutely 100% of those memories, until I started healing. I started coming out of trauma. And everything that I learned, how to move about life, emotional intelligence, how to interact with other people, whether it's work, whether it's romantic relationships, other people from family, it was all under those lenses of having grown up being told that I was never enough, with a mom that did not want to be there and was performing a job because she had to. So obviously, as a child, I found ways to entertain myself and feel good. So I've always been very inclined to the arts. So that's what I did most of my growing up, lots of art, whether it was painting or performing or music. And I believe that this trauma was also kind of the trampoline that helped me reconnect or connect even more with that divine aspect of me. Because since I'm very young, I've had what you could call a lot of metaphysical experiences. So I was constantly interacting with energies, receiving messages or hearing things or sensing things. I could dream about things that were going to happen either the next day or many years after, because there are things that I dreamt about when I was a little child that happened after I left Chile. So that was like 20 years after.
Wow.
That gave me the way that made me feel was like I had something greater than myself having my back at all times.
Yeah.
And so no matter what my mom or any circumstance would throw at me, I had this other extra energy, like parent-like energy that was always telling me, you are worthy, you're enough, you are beautiful, you're creative, you're lovely. And so I had these two kind of currents running my life.
That is very insightful. And I think young kids, the younger, I think they're more in tune with the subconscious being of themselves than we are, because they don't have all the distractions like we do as we begin to get older. all the distraction, there's a couple of things that they do and we do as we are younger. The arts, the ability to engage the imagination, which is one of the most powerful tools out there for a creator to use. And that's who we are. When one engage the imagination, it's the beginning of their creation process. And I use this example because, again, I grew up in the church, and I usually revert back to some of those stories that I read in the Bible when it tells us that, and God said, let's make man in our image and stuff like that and create this earth form. I ask people, where did that come from? It had to come from his imagination. He had to have an origin point. And then when that origin point was there in his imagination, then he began to take the steps necessary to make that thing a reality. And so here's these kids, you and I, and so they're imagining, they'll talk to imaginary friends, as they say, not recognizing the adults, not recognizing that maybe those are angels or these of the other worlds that those kids are seeing and looking just like anything else and just like they see mom and dad, because um, uh, those entities are moving all around us. They're just moving at a different frequency. But they're all over the place. We just don't see them because they're at a different frequency. But that child, because they're in tune with that subconscious being of who they truly are, maybe seeing them plain as day, talking to them, and we've heard stories of that. And so here you are, they're watching and they got your back and they're whispering to you and you are receiving dreams and communication and you're learning to trust the other side more so than the natural side, because in the natural world, they're telling you how you're no good. So as this young girl is growing up now, she's getting older and she's heading towards, let's say, into high school and those places. How was she relating to the outside world, the other people, the ones that she can touch and feel? What was her relationship like? Because we know what mom was instilling her, and we also know what the spiritual realm was instilling in her. How were you managing yourself with those worlds as a young woman?
It was really awkward growing up, becoming a teenager, because our frontal lobes gets more developed, so we are more behavior inclined.
Mm-hmm.
And as we are this forming human and adolescent, we are short of a few skills and experience in the 3D world, like I would like to call it. And interacting with other people from a loving standpoint was very difficult. It was very difficult for me to trust anyone because my primary caretaker was not to be trusted. She was not reliable. She was unpredictable. So I learned to read people really well. I learned to adapt to people really well. And I learned to push my true self down and hide it and what you would call masking really well in order to survive, in order to move about the world, in order to not be bothered at school, in order to not be bothered on the street, in order not to get unpleasant comments from anybody. Because you develop this sensitivity to the smallest of nuances in the language of the person you have in front of you, or the micro expressions, because you grew up in this constant state of hypervigilance. So it was extremely tiring. Only recently I realized that what I had was something akin to a chronic stress. My body was in a constant state of nervousness. And as much as I had this connection with spirituality, when you're a teenager, you still experience this need to belong and to be part of what's going on. So I developed this part of myself that would not compromise my true self to become popular, or that other end, the exaggerated end of being a teenager or being in high school. And I started to pretty much excel at everything I studied. So I went into like the nerdy side, or I don't know how you call it today, but I am a nerd. I love it. I'm probably in the spectrum, which I also love, because I can learn a lot of things and really focus on things. And in that space, I met a lot of other people that were like me, maybe even coming from similar circumstances. And this is when the spiritual part kicked in, because with them, I felt like we could share, we could talk, we could be loving to each other, we could be comforting to each other, we could handhold each other in whatever happened in our environment. We could be there for each other.
Yeah.
Most of my emotional skills, my emotional intelligence, I developed with what you could call peers during high school, which was the first time that I was outside of home for longer periods of time, sharing with other kids that had similar experiences, boys and girls.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the first spaces that I tell people that are traumatized. What we do, one of the first things that we do is we develop skills to survive. I was hurt with my family, and trust issue was one of my thing, and I didn't trust anyone because my concept was, if my parents can do that, then who claimed to love me, then I don't trust anyone at all. And so I never allowed anyone anywhere to hurt me again. And so I learned how to survive. I learned how to keep people away from me, even though they thought that they knew me or whatever. But I just allowed them to get to a certain space, and that was it. And you couldn't get there if never allow you to get there. And so I did that to survive and keep myself safe, if you will. And as you're going through life, as it happened to me, I had to deal with that. I was in college when all those memories started kicking in. And I remember running and hiding in a corner, crying like a little baby and couldn't understand what was going on and trying to, not to be embarrassed and so forth. As you're moving through life, Andrea, but you had a chance to express all of those things with found commonality with a group of folks, and so you were able to deal with some of those things there. As you were moving through life and you're going in towards college, and where you had to shed some of those friends and some of that security there, what was the conversation in your world when it came to college as far as your study? And why did you pick your field of study?
So I didn't go to college. After I finished high school, I was studying high school, and at the same time, I was in a trading school, and I learned I became an accountant.
Okay.
I hated it. I didn't like it. I did it because my father told me I had to do it, so I did it. But I don't, and until today, I don't like it. It's really boring. So the agreement was, I finish high school, I finish the accounting course, I get my degree, and then I can look for a job maybe outside the country, outside of Chile. And at the time, my English was really good, and I started applying to work on cruise ships. I started going to recruiting agencies and giving interviews and all that. And at some point, after a year or a year and a half making interviews, I lost hope that I was going to be picked, because I was short before turning 20, and they wouldn't hire anyone younger than 21. Well, one day I did an interview, and the next day when I called to see if I was recruited or not, they said, yes, you're in. And I got so upset because I didn't expect it anymore. But I said, okay, well, now I'm in, so I guess I'll have to go. And so there was me, 20 years old, never left Chile, not even, because my family is not rich, wasn't rich. We never went on vacation to anywhere. We just stayed put the whole time. And so there was me with my backpack in front of this huge white boat in Miami, fresh after turning 20, and started this new life. And the first thing that somebody told me when I put a foot on board was, welcome to the jungle. And it couldn't have not been more accurate, couldn't have been more accurate, because really there I was thrown in a pot of about 68 different nationalities, kinds of people, all ages, all walks of life. Then I was in full survival mode. I was like, okay, which skills did we pick up throughout all this time? And let's put them to work. And so there wasn't much space for true relationships, for real friends. It was more of this camaraderie that is created in a space that you share with other people that we're all pointing to in the same direction. So we're all kind of agreeing to share that space at that time and make the most of it because we're all profiting from that.
Mm-hmm.
But during those trips, the most wonderful thing happened because whenever I was doubting if I was in the right path, if I did the right thing, suddenly the boat was going to some island, to some country. And when I would look out of the window or when I would look out on deck, there was this place that I dreamt about when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Wow.
And it was a confirmation, like from the heavens saying, yes, you're in the right place. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And so every place I went, I think God or the universe, or however you want to call it, always puts angels on your side. I've been in many situations that I could have been very dangerous, or that I ended up in the wrong place out of ignorance and being naive. But there was always someone to lend a hand and inadvertently maybe put me in a safe spot or send me back to the boat safely. But all that time served me to kind of become a bit of an anthropologist of my own, but I did not have much time to catch up with my own feelings. So it was a very intensive time that I didn't really get in touch with myself, and everything that was happening so fast that I didn't have time to process it. It went straight into the backpack
Mm-hmm.
of life.
Yeah.
And once I finished working on the boat, I stayed for 1 year in New York. I turned 22 when I was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a whole different animal. But I loved it. I actually did very well there. I met people that were so kind and loving and wise. I mean, I'm always grateful for the good things and what could be perceived as not so good because I've learned the most from them. And I had the best of both when I was in New York. And although the circumstances of me leaving weren't precisely the best, it gave me something that no college could have ever given me.
Yeah. New York, I'm a New Yorker, so I know there's much there in New
Yes.
York. You can learn much in a short time and lots of knowledge walking around there because there's so much culture, there's so much stuff, there's art, there's all the different, just like the cruise ship, but just bigger,
Yes,
as
much
far as the
bigger.
culture, yeah. After New York and you had a situation where you had to leave there, where did you go and why did you pick that destination over any place else?
So after New York, I went back to Chile.
Mm-hmm.
And because the only thing that I knew was to work on boats, or that it was familiar to me, that would be up to the standard of what I was used to do, I continued to apply to boat companies. And this time I got picked to go to work on Antarctica and Arctic expedition boats.
Mm-hmm.
And although at first it felt like I was running from something, that's something that I was running from, which was the processing of all the experience and how that was connected to the trauma growing up. It caught me in Antarctica because that place is like going to a different planet.
Yeah.
There's nothing but silence, and you are the alien there. And slowly but surely, I always say, if that boat would have been anywhere else in the world, I would have gone crazy. But it was in Antarctica, and because it was there, I witnessed so many people in need of comfort and healing that took that trip in order to reconnect, that it was the first time in my life that I found myself being of service, not just of service to pour your drinks or to tell you where the dining room is, but of service in terms of saying, now you're here. and look at yourself. You know, everything else, your history, everything that happened to you. Here, nobody cares. It doesn't define you. Here, you are a new person. The penguins don't care. The whales don't care. The heavens don't care. They just show you the best there is of creation, nature, the wisdom of nature, the beauty of nature. And this is who you are. And so I found myself inadvertently helping people realize where they were and how wonderful it was. And then it helped me realize where I was and how wonderful it was, and start this inner processing slowly, but in a very powerful way, because not everyone gets time out or time off in a place like that to stop and think a little bit. I'm forever grateful for that experience. And that definitely did something to me. I had a lot of time to think and make decisions about my future then.
As you were afforded the time to think and looking into your future and getting a chance to help others, what did it do to you, Andrea? Affording the time to think is great, but what did it do?
Well, this is when I started having more memories of what had happened when I was a child. Slowly, my consciousness was opening up to those times. And my decision was, I'm no longer going to work on boats. I want to be in land. And at that time, my father was living in Barcelona for a long time already. I talked to him and he offered that he would help me come to Barcelona. So I took that opportunity. And when I arrived in Barcelona, it's literal magic happened. I cannot explain it. Many other people have had the same experience in Barcelona, apparently, that I've talked to. But those days when I couldn't work because my paperwork was being processed, I could take long walks in the city. And one day I had this huge surge of energy coming over me. And it was like the city came and just hugged me and say, now I am your mother. You're going to be here. You're going to stay here. And suddenly it was this huge feeling, like this motherly love that I didn't really feel or experience growing up. I felt in that moment from the city. And I said, okay, so this is home. And I stayed there for 15 years. And in all those years, I met wonderful people that facilitated my path of healing and learning and unlearning and learning again. And until today, I think everything that has happened in a beautiful, magical way. I always say that life is like the string and every experience is like a pearl. Mm-hmm. So life is like a string of pearls, and everything that was happening to me, even if it was perceived maybe by others as negative, for me, it's a pearl. It's a pearl of wisdom. It's a pearl that is so valuable. I would not be here without any of those. If one of those things would have not happened, maybe it would have happened differently, but all of that, good and bad, helped me be right here, right now.
That's how it was designed. The good and the bad is the yin and the yang. We've heard that is what designed us. And I always try to tell people that we need to be grateful for both, because both give birth to you today. And, I thank God for both of them, the good and the bad, because those decisions that I made that caused some dark periods, I learned a lot in those dark periods. And so my advice to people is always within the dark period, try not to stay there that long. Learn what you need to learn and exit as quickly as you can. And the only way you can do that is by going inward and having those conversations with yourself to listen, be patient, be quiet, and get answers there, and don't be a second longer than you need to be. But we need to be there sometimes. And I use this analogy again. As I said, I grew up in the church. They talk about the story about the prodigal son. Went to his dad and said, "Hey, give me all my money." And then he took all his money and his inheritance, and he went and spent and party just like everybody else would. Party all his money, all his friends, or so-called friends. When they all left, the next picture that we have in this play, he's in the with the pigs, and he's eating pig food with the pigs. And in this low period of his life, he gets this revelation, if you will, that, hey, the servants in my dad's house are eating better than me. I think I'm going to go to my dad's house. And he got up and he took a step. And I tell people that's a powerful thing that he did, because he realized that the servants are eating better than him in his low period. But all the pride and everything that he had to walk each step, he had to talk himself about that, because here this guy was wealthy and he is going back in that condition, and he had to let all that pride go as he's walking back, getting to his dad's house to go try to eat some food that he said the servants are eating. And so you and I, sometimes it's in the dark places that we get the revelation that is necessary to propel us. But his dad was waiting there to restore him. So, it's in the dark place that we get a chance to make some of the most powerful declaration and decisions that will change our lives forever. So just don't be there longer than you need to be. As you were with these folks and the city hugged you in Barcelona and welcomed you, and you had all these encounters, Andrew, what were some of those tools? Because we bring in all of these things into our life to assist us from those dark spaces, to walk us through the trauma, if you will, to teach us and get us and motivate us and move us from one stage to another. What were some of those tools that you brought into your life from meeting all these different people that came into your life that helped you to move through your spaces from one place to another?
So first, it was to find people that I felt safe with, also facilitators that I felt safe with, because being armored your whole life not to be hurt, because you grew up in an environment of hurt, it's very difficult to put that armor down in order to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Because underneath that armor is where all the wounds are. And luckily, I was introduced to a lot of different people that, through many different types of techniques, from tapping to channeling, gave their 1 cent for me to take it and multiply it and make a wealth of healing and fixing myself. And I understood the wisdom of the body, because in 2018, my body said, we have one more very big thing that we need to take care of. And my body just gave up. I've always been an extremely healthy person, not so much as one cold per year. But that year, I got a monster autoimmune disease flare-up. And I was diagnosed an autoimmune disease, which for me felt extremely unfair. It felt like some sort of condemnation, being thrown in jail for life and throw the key. And like you said, at that moment, I was in the hospital for a whole month.
Wow.
I lost 10 kilos. That's about 20 pounds, I believe, in 1 month. But I knew I had a decision to make while I was in the hospital. Am I going to believe that this is my truth forever? Or am I going to make the first step? So I put myself out of that situation, first of all, mentally and emotionally, while being in the hospital. And I started researching. Not only the science of what was happening to me, but also spiritually, energetically. Why was this happening to me? And why now? Why today? And so all that pointed me in the direction where I am now. This is why I became so fascinated by our subconscious mind, and why I decided to become a hypnotherapist. This is why I decided to be of service to other people. This is when I discovered Dr. Gabor Mate, which is a doctor that specializes in trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he talks about it and teaches about it, it was so enlightening to me that I think while reading about him and his works in the hospital, it kind of healed a little piece of myself. And I really wanted more, but not only for myself, but for others. And this is when I came out of the hospital and I made it my mission to be of service, because I could not believe the despair that I felt those first 2 or 3 days when I was diagnosed and I was told, this is forever, this will never leave your body. I refused to believe it. And so again, with people that came into my life and helped me redirect myself in order to study, to learn, and also to heal, I met doctors that were doing incredible things, not only with traditional medicine, but with holistic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That was truly inspiring and that helped me. I haven't had a flare-up since 2020. That was the last flare-up I had. I barely have any symptoms, and I have become so attuned to the wisdom of my body that when my body is showing me something, I know immediately what to do. I know immediately where is it coming from. And most of the time is, how am I processing my emotions, my circumstances, my thoughts? How am I managing everything that is happening to me and everything I choose to connect with energetically, like I'm sharing with you today? So there was a whole new level of wisdom that was unlocked through that very dark time I ended up in the hospital, because I was 3 days away from kidney failure. I had to have 2 blood transfusions because my body was giving up. Yeah, so it was quite traumatic in the body, but I believed it was kind of a somatic thing, that everything, all that little corner of trauma that was there trapped, it broke. The last frontier was my body, and my body said, now let's unleash this and let's deal with this and let's work with this. And so I'm actually very glad that it happened to me, and that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me that month in the hospital, because it changed my life. And thanks to that, I'm also helping people change their lives and their perception of lives and how they move about life, and to connect with their own internal tools to create a better life.
I think it had to happen to you because there are other people that they needed an advocate. And I tell people sometimes God looks for someone that he can trust.
That's so nice.
And you get picked and you go through some of these wonderful things.
Yes.
Because he sees that there is a greater need in the back end, and he needs an advocate that he can trust that will go through. And when they go through it and they come out, they're able to assist those. But you said something that I want to circle back at, because if I don't, I think they will miss the wisdom that is in it and the nugget that is in it and the power that is in it. When you were told that you are about your sickness and your disease, that this is it, you're going to be trapped there forever, you refuse. And that is the key, guys. The data that they give to her is, I'll put it this way. There's truth and then there's facts. And the fact is that her body was exhibiting an immune deficiency disease. I mean, they came and they're telling her, that but her truth is, no, that's not my truth. And you shall know the truth, and the truth is going to set you free. And because she knew the truth, that condition and that situation, she refused the fact. And the truth will always override the fact, because the truth will take faith to get it done. It's always that way. It is always that way. It is always that way. Because truth is not seen, it is believed. And so when they come with all their facts, you have to have your truth inside of you because your truth will give you the guidance and to push through, to become resilient, to push through, to become courageous, to push through against all the facts that is residing within your body. That is the key. That if I did, it would be malpractice if I did not come back to bring it to your attention. That you must find your truth in your situation because it is the key to coming through the other side. I don't care whatever situation you're in. She was in sickness and disease, and whatever it is, find your truth. And it will give you all the different things that you need. It will cause you to go and seek data. It'll make you do the research. It'll make you do all the other things because that truth is guiding you. And when you get discouraged, that truth will give you the strength to push through. Here you are. You're standing there. And that truth also, what I've known is your faith, because you and I are energy, and faith is a law, actually. It's a spiritual law. It will build the people that will will need to help you fulfill that truth that you have. And so your truth, you needed physicians with the ability to make that truth a reality, and they started popping up. I'm telling you guys, that's it right there. Andrea's talking about, she said it in just a little thing, but it is the key to everything that you're going through. Then you would be amazed once you speak your truth, you'll see who will come up in your life to make that a reality. The doctors, all of a sudden they showed up. They had the knowledge to help her make that a reality, and that's how it works. So as you began, and you said you walked out, I loved it. And so when you came out of there, you went and you did your studies and so forth, and the hypnotherapy and things like that. When you began to operate in your assignment, because I tell people, Andrea, another thing, that we did not come here on this planet to work and die. That is not what we are here for. We are here to find and locate our assignment. Once we operate in our assignment, the assignment, I tell people, is designed to sustain you as well financially. The job is the lie to keep you tied to the system and to that program. But anyway, once you have located your assignment and you began to do your assignment, you have to go through all the imposter things and all those things. Once you began to do that, and when you had your first client, your first hypnotherapy, and talk to me about one of those patients that came in struggling. The type that came in broken, no hope. And from your conversation with them, they're telling you this is, I don't know. And you're just listening to them. And as you began to talk with them and engage, and as you began to move them from one space to another, let the audience into one of those precious moments so that they can understand how you utilize your gifts and how you move within your assignment, your world. We will talk about the spiritual part of it and so forth, but I want to address first the hypnotism part of it, and then we'll talk about the spiritual part of it. Talk about that aspect first, when you took someone and walk with them, because you have to regress and then bring them back, deal with all the different things and so forth. Talk to us about one of them.
Well, I believe that everyone that comes to me, it's someone that is energetically aligned. It's someone that I am fit to facilitate their healing. And so when somebody comes, there is always this moment when I give them the space to talk. And from a hypnotherapist standpoint, you observe language. You observe the nuances. It's curious because it's like a professional way of doing what I did growing up in order to survive. But now what I learned more professionally, and it has therapeutic aspect to it now. So with that, I am able to help the person enter a state of relaxation that is called trance. And while that person is in that deep state of relaxation and comfort and trust, that is when the magic happens. That is when there is a conversation, a literal conversation with the subconscious mind. And it is so incredible to me to have these experiences because it's our body that gives us the yes and the no's from our subconscious. That's how it's expressed through a session. And just that communication to me is like talking to the divine self of the person that's in front of me.
Yeah.
Once that change work is done, I will help with some framing or reframing, which is what we have experienced, to put it in a different light that is healthier and more positive for the person. And then it's the coming out of the trance. The person feels like they have had the best nap of their lives. And the rest is just to handhold with them for some time, for a little bit. The fantastic thing about hypnotherapy is that it works so fast that I have had cases of chronic pain gone after just one session, which to me, it's like a miracle. But the fact that we have that divine power inside of us that can be facilitated through techniques like hypnotherapy or NLP, it's absolutely wonderful. So it's very humbling to me because I am nothing but a facilitator of this process. Once the people experience it, their whole life starts to change. It's like what you said, they made the decision to make a change. Once they go through that, the exercise of that decision to make that step, after they make that step, life literally opens up to them. And then is when they start to live the life that they meant to live, that they wish to live, that they desire to live. Because suddenly that pain is gone. Suddenly there is a new awareness about themselves, their bodies, their lives, the people around them, how they have conducted their lives and how they wish to conduct their lives. There is a very deep healing. They can't put the finger on it, what happened. But because it's our subconscious mind, it's like the motherboard of the computer that has been changed. So you cannot go back to be that person anymore. And I see it like a constant upgrade after that.
Yeah.
To me, it's really wonderful.
It's a virus being cleaned.
It's like an old app that no longer serves. And so we update your software and that app is rendered useless. So we need now something up to date, new, that will go with this new operating system that's in place.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love it. And you guys that are listening to our conversation, I wanted to pull that out of her so that you can get an idea of, because sometimes people are pretty apprehensive when it comes to hypnotherapy. You know, they get kind of scared, you know, they think of and there are different types of hypnosis, if you will. And so they're trying to think of the ones that you see in Vegas, you know, where they talk turn people into chickens and all these type of different things, and don't understand what we're talking about. And this, I wanted you guys to understand the therapeutic purpose of hypnotherapy and what the value of it and how it is. So I wanted to take away that foolishness, if you will, as what they portray out there. And there's that, but then there's this real stuff that is there to change lives and make people into who they truly are and what they're supposed to be in their life. Talk to me now about the spiritual aspect. You have some of those that don't need all the hypnotherapy, but they've been on the journey, but they haven't put all the pieces together, and they're coming, and they're fragmented as well, and they present to you, and they've you know, we were there. We were like all over the place, but we know that this is a necessary start. Talk to those folks, Andrea, as to how do you engage with those on the spiritual side, because you know you may have, again, some that don't feel that they need to be to be hypnotized or anything like that. So how do you deal with someone like that?
So I use different tools and techniques combined. I am a channeler, what you could call a medium, and I help people that way too. Also, when they have experienced loss, or I even do it with my pet when she's sick. I connect with her to see how she's feeling, if she could tell me something. But I use, for example, tarot, I use Reiki, energy healing, use Ho'oponopono, this ancient Hawaiian tradition of healing through mantras. And what it does is it takes you out of your mind. And instead of being that turtle that is walking on the ground, hitting the legs of the chair and not seeing what's next in front of it, it gives you the eagle eyes. It puts you in a perspective that you can see everything from a much bigger or higher standpoint. So it gets you out of the trap of your mind to a standpoint of the observer. It allows you to have a greater vision of your life and start making decisions from there. So in a way, I don't see it like I am the one putting you in that place.
Mm-hmm.
I am giving you some tools and some techniques so you can practice that for yourself and put yourself in that place of the observer of your reality, of what's happening in your world, so you can take action and take inspired action, not action from your mind. Our mind is like a jail. Some people call it the crazy one of the house because we cannot find our answers only here.
Yeah.
Even biologically, we have 3 brains. We have neurons in our heart, we have neurons in our gut, even more so than our brain. And then we have the vagus nerve that connects our gut, our heart, and our brain. And those neurons go up and down those nerves. So we cannot say that the mind is the master. No, the body is the master. The mind has to be at our service. And through spirituality, we enter in that place where you can elevate yourself from your mind, from the circumstances, observe what's happening and take inspired and wise action, not from the ego, not from the mind.
Guys, welcome you. And one of the things, Andrea, I always tell my audience, learn how to become a hearer. There's a difference between a hearer and a listener. Learn that skill, because when one becomes a hearer, things begin, they receive it differently. And that the listener is the natural mind. The hearer is the subconscious mind. It is the individual in the back. You know, this is the front right here, but the guy in the back, when he hears it, everything becomes a reality at that point in time. So I invite you guys to learn how to become a hearer. And once you do that, you'll change your world. Andrea, thank you so much for coming and spending such precious time with us and sharing all of that wisdom and the knowledge that you've gained through your journey. I really honor you for coming and sharing it with us. And thank you so much. And we're going to provide all your links and everything for the people to get access to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm really glad that we got to share.
And thank you for that short intro. It made me laugh, and it still makes me laugh when I think about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.